Welcome to Gray Areas for January 14th, 2025, episode 656. It's the continuation of our annual tradition, and how exciting, because it's now the video game list that Sean and I both put a ton of time into, and Cody and Dave will still have a couple things to contribute, namely one game. We'll get to all of it, but we're wrapping up basically this two-parter. If you didn't see last week's episode, go do it. That was TV and movies and sports, and now we're heading to games for this week.
Dave, if you had to guess, when was the last time you would say you put in work for the show?
Ooh, well, I actually was just reflecting on the show a little bit. And 10 years ago, we did a thing about me turning 30 10 years ago. So probably around that time is my guess.
Would agree. I would agree. If not longer.
Yeah. So,
and I feel every year of it. Trust me.
Oh, well, all right. Well, but I do have a contribution on one of your games that you are going to speak about later today. A very thorough contribution, I believe. Yeah.
I don't even have that, so you can criticize me instead now.
I just think you're part of a podcast now. You're part of an entertainment juggernaut. Would it fucking kill you to play a few more video games in the year?
I think I highlighted what ended up being the best-selling game of the year, much to your dismay.
Yeah, best-selling.
And I'm just taking a victory lap on this show more than anything, really.
So let me ask you something, though. Do you like Call of Duty? Most of the time is the best-selling game of the year. So does college football being the best-selling game of the year really hold as much water as you think it does?
Yeah, because when's the last time Madden did it?
I know it was going to be yes.
When's the last time Madden did it?
Asking anybody, but I think especially Cody, like a rhetorical question, they're going to be like, yeah, it is.
See, if it happens like year after year after year and the game is the same and the same and the same, then I would not take pride in it. I take pride in it this year only because of the shit I'll get to later, because they've actually been updating the game as the season has gone on, which I was fucking shocked that they actually put effort into.
I was actually going to say, after last week, now we got all the boring shit out of the way, and then I figured I was going to talk about college football. So
I just need like 3 minutes.
We got most of the boring shit out of the way last week, and now it's time for the fun stuff. Hard-hitting gaming journalism right here. Best of lists.
Journalism.
It's the thing that matters the most.
To you?
To me, yes.
Okay.
But I do like it. Maisie, giving that enthusiastic thumbs up. Super supportive. I don't even know what Dragonbound is, so...
Well, someone didn't do their research now, did they?
That's right.
I'm not convinced Nick's not making something up.
Well, you should have researched that he would make things up, and if you researched enough, you would know he made it up.
You prepare for interviews. You got to anticipate the questions, and that's how you prepare the best. I didn't anticipate Nick. It matters to Chris,
you didn't
too.
do anything. So how much... When's the last time you said you would work for the show, huh? Just curious.
Are you serious?
I mean... you asked a rhetorical question that I answered, so I figured I'd just return the favor.
Well, I know, but I was hoping you would know the answer, because I'm not Chris level, but I put in quite a bit of work, actually.
Do you know how many games he played this year, Dave? He was prepping all year.
That's one part of it. There's also planning the shows. There's also
That's what I was gonna. Gonna point out the fact that you'd be playing those games anyway, even if you had the show.
No. Chris knows how hard, especially the movies and TV. I'm like, Peter, we got to watch this week. We have to have a plan for busting through all of Squid Game, for example.
I finished that.
Yeah, well, I'm just saying. I do. I treat it like a job. But it's fun. I mean, it's fun. It's not like it's not fun. It's a fun job. It's a job that you like. That's my. But yeah, I've done a lot of work for the Takeover show, and I do a lot of the planning and stuff. Again, Chris is on another level. I'm not going there, but I solidly number 2.
I am very appreciative of Maisie being annoyed by Sean's work.
Yeah.
Work.
Sometimes she likes him. Most of the time she's like, what did we just watch?
As she supported your weird nonsense last week on the show, now she's saying now it's weird Oscar shit. Just flip-flopping back and forth.
I'm trying to fix everything live. We're almost there.
Sean can keep talking. Sean, what's your worst game of the year?
Keep having...
I do have a dishonorable mention.
Okay.
I have a couple of them.
Everything just keeps going weird today. It's fine. We had some issues with the breaker, and I think the soundboard got freaked out at one point when it kept having power dip in and out, but
thank you,
everything
Jason.
should be fine. I'm hearing the stream.
Thank you, Jason.
Jason's
right. I do my homework. Dishonorable mention for me. Let's start. The main one I think is Dragon Age, and only Chris is going to know about it, but and it's only dishonorable. It's a fine game. It's a fine game, but Cody, imagine there's a thing that you like. Let's say the Batman movies. You like those. And if they're like, for the next one, we're going to make it, God, you're weird though. You like sometimes the cartoony stuff. But I'm saying, this is a very established universe, right? You like the tone that they have for these movies. If they went full on Batman and Robin for number 2, you would be like, why did they do that?
So if Christopher Nolan made 2 Batman movies and then he made one that was like whatever the weird Joel whatever guy that made those movies,
Yeah, that's not that
jarringly different. Yes.
It was a little bad, but
tonally it would be way different.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that's what I feel like Dragon Age was, where they took a lot of bad gameplay decisions. The writing was not very good, and the main issue is just tonally. You had this dark, gritty series, and they decided to do away with all the conflict, all of the dark stuff, and it's just kind of like a buddy game, and it has no stakes, so you're not compelled to play it at all.
I mean, knowing nothing, obviously, other than trying to be a journalist and ask you questions, it sounds like it gets made to be a wider audience type of like kids opening the door type of game, as opposed to the audience that's played the game for a long time.
I think it's so wide in the audience.
Okay,
and
you simplify it, you make it, you tonally change it to where it's a little bit lighter, and it's like, oh well, kids should play this game and then be introduced to the series, the franchise, I guess, as opposed to continuing on what you've liked.
It didn't work, and I don't know how many times I have to learn that lesson of like trying to appeal to everybody. You know the donkey parable? Anyways, end of the story. It tries to appeal to everybody, and it ends up failing at everything, and that's what Dragon Age is.
I enjoyed the
camel, by the way. They use that phrase in Parks and Rec. They make the painting, and they say everyone contributed, and you made a camel. It was a horse made by a committee. Is that what you're saying? Is that the phrase you're talking about?
I don't know. But
you said donkey something. I thought you were phrasing that phrase.
I'm a little bit surprised to see that down there, but I'm not shocked. I didn't think it was going to make your top 10.
No, I don't like. It's a fine game. It's just like, this was one of my favorite series ever. Inquisition was my game of the year in the year it came out, which we'll revisit soon, actually. But that's a different announcement. So it's disappointing. It sounds like I should dive into the list, especially because, Chris, you're like, still like troubleshooting stuff?
I'm troubleshooting. We're mostly there. We're fine. Like, we can keep going.
Or Cody and I can do our one. Get out of the way.
No. Let me go, because I don't care about yours. We'll get to yours eventually. Maybe it's yours is on my list.
We'll save the best.
Sean's gonna filibuster the show, and we're not gonna talk about it. That's exactly what he's doing.
I'm gonna be quick. But so I tried when I wrote these notes, which is again more work that I do. Now I have to start fucking pointing it out, proving all my work to Dave.
You do have to show your work. That is part of it.
I will. I'll show you some fucking paragraphs of.
Okay, there actually are paragraphs.
Yeah, there sure are.
Do you think I care? Do you think I care about
I care now because that was a fucking dense ass
but
multiple
if
paragraphs.
you call me out and I refute you, you may not care, but all of America can see.
It's
they're
like
taking sides.
It's challenging Uno. You challenged him. He showed you that you were wrong. So now you have a bunch of cards.
Yeah,
and you
now
lost.
you have egg on your face.
I never doubted the amount of work he puts in it.
You have egg on your face.
No, you did. You doubted him.
So a lot of
I changed sides. I'm on his side now.
Thank you, Cody. I try to appeal to what I think Dave might care about. So my number 10 is it's a tie.
Life revolves around me.
It's a tie. Yeah, it's a tie between Unicorn Overlord and Fantasian, Neo Dimension. And the reason it's a tie, other than them both having fucking stupid names, is one of them starts really good, Unicorn Overlord, Dave, and you just like the mechanics are so addicting, and you're trying to like optimize your little team, and no, it will be quick. And then on the other side, Fantasian, which starts off so bad. So, Dave, it's turn-based combat. Maisie, shut the fuck up.
Taking shots in the comments as he tries to
I switched to your side and she switched to everybody else's side.
That's true. So,
Maisie's always been on my side.
Fantasian, turn-based combat, okay? But you have the ability to like send monsters to another dimension to like fight them all at once later. And it's really fun. You don't get that until probably 5 hours in. So, why are you doing that? And then at one point, the game opens up with like the sphere grade, basically. Dave, you're looking down. I need you to look at me. And that doesn't open up until like 20 hours in. So you have all these great gameplay mechanics that you don't get until like some games would be over by then. And my question is like, who would stick around for that reliably? I would.
Somebody who's gullible and has a shitload of time on their hands to do nothing else.
Time, but I drive a lot. So, what I was going to tell you though, this feels like Final Fantasy 11.
Maisie drives a lot. He rides.
Okay.
Oh yeah. Oh, I don't
I was
play
like,
yeah,
either he stole your car, Dave, or his wife drives him places.
Yeah.
It's a great system for him because she gets car sick, so he gets just to play. It works.
It's like it's a dream come true.
It's a good dynamic.
It's the only reason we're still together.
Yeah.
So this is like
He admits it.
Dave. This is like what Final Fantasy 11 should have been. Is other than a weird MMO. It's like this game, really good stuff. Fantasia, I really recommend it. Indiana Jones is my number 9. Did you guys hear about there's an Indiana Jones game?
Nope.
Okay, well I'll be quick then.
Troy Baker's Indiana Jones. Troy Baker's back.
Yeah, and exactly, and the voice is uncanny. It's like it really feels like this is Indiana Jones 4. Like it feels like it's the original. I know there's a 4, but like not really. This is like the actual 4 that should have been made a long time ago. And you really like embody this guy. Like I felt like I was truly just a regular guy. Like I was just like Dave out fighting Nazis. How Dave would fight Nazis, which is like not very well. You know what I mean?
Oh.
I mean, I'm a little surprised you didn't go for the low-hanging fruit of not like Dave, who would have joined.
That's where I thought he was
that
going to
would've
go
been
too. Is
better.
saying I fought Dave in the game, who was a Nazi.
That would've
I
been better.
assumed he was going to go there.
No, you're right.
You're off your game,
Yeah.
man. Like you haven't been working hard enough.
I know. You're right. You're right. Yeah. So the story lost a little bit of steam, but it was good. Number 8, Stellar Blade. Have you heard of that one? Where did Dave go? What's happening? Okay. So Stellar Blade. So what's interesting, there's a lot of come on, what is this? Sean drives questionably. Yeah. If you don't know what good driving looks like.
I mean, if you feel like you're hanging on for your life when Sean drives.
That's how I feel in this episode, taking shots left and right. Stellar Blade is like it's this Korean game that is doing a lot of Korean games they're doing now, and they're just wholesale stealing other games, but then like still making them really good. That's Stellar Blade. So Stellar Blade just copied Nier. It's just Nier from like pretty much gameplay to music to presentation to story. It's just the same game.
It's a fan service.
It's a fan service, yeah. But I would say even worse than Nier, though. Really.
Probably, yeah.
But what they got right was the gameplay was just really good. It's like a little slower, a little more party based. And then there's like a boss rush that really like highlights what the game does well, and that's the best part.
It's not even the only game in your top 10 from an Asian developer ripping off another series' formula.
Exactly. No, it's
so.
not. Yeah.
It's going to be an interesting year as far as that stuff goes, because now there's a blueprint for, we'll just take this model, put a coat of paint over it, and a good coat of paint.
Yeah.
I'm not saying they're bad games.
No.
We've seen cheap rip-offs before, and these games were good, but it makes you wonder how many more of them we're going to see in the next couple of years when the development catches up.
Yeah, we saw with Liza P, too.
Yeah, true.
How is that acceptable
know.
to be on your list? No. I'm not talking about legality. I don't care. How is that acceptable to be on your list? Someone who prides himself on his ability to be true to himself, and yet you take a stolen game.
I don't know if I've ever said I need to be true to myself. First of all.
I mean,
Right.
But
That's a song from
so much
Mulan,
pride.
first of all.
yeah, but the game is that good. So when they nail the combat, it's really really well done. And yeah, it is the nature of gaming. That is true. It's not the only clone on the list. So Chris brought up that. Even aside from that, we have a Mario Galaxy clone later on.
Yep.
They're just a little more blatant in the stealing, I feel like. But at the end of the day, I played the game. It was really good. It deserves a spot on the list. Like,
And it was the word integrity, what I was looking for. You pride yourself on your integrity of your list, and I
of the
completely
list.
blanked on
Yes,
that
yes,
simple
I
word.
do. It's the only thing I care about.
Yes.
Yeah,
I know.
but because I'm so tied to integrity, I gotta just give the best games, even if they're a copy, even if whatever. I gotta put it on there. Number 7 is Balatro. Now, what's interesting is I had Balatro off the list, and then I had it number 10 for like a long time as number 10. And then I recently played in December, and I was like, okay, I got a little bit more of the hook. It's probably the most addictive game of last year.
Yes.
And it's really, I mean, there's nothing more. The music's great. The sound effects are top notch. Just really, really, really good. And I've already talked to Chris a little bit about this, so I won't belabor it. I think I said story, and I was like, no, it doesn't need story. I needed what would have taken it to the next level for me was some more modes or campaign or something like that. And the comparison I had was Soul Calibur 2. The gameplay, best fighting game I think ever. But if it didn't have all the modes that it had and all the different versatility to what you were playing to keep you coming back, I don't think it would have been my favorite game, my favorite fighting game ever. But there was so much to it that added that extra level, kept me coming back. Battletron was like, oh, you try the new difficulty, and that's fun for a while. But then I'm like, okay, I did it, and it's all self-guided.
Well, that's part of it, is that when you overcome those difficulties, that is your mode pretty much. I understand where you're going with, because it feels like at the end game, you're always basically like, okay, well, I've got all of one card now, and they're all steel red chip cards, so therefore, boom, 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 here we go. So at that point, it's challenging yourself. I saw people doing the no jokers challenge, which is just insane to me, but people do it. I don't think I'm ever going to get to that point. So that is a great, okay, I'm going to start this run, see how I do. Shit, I messed up. Okay, try it again later. That's the fact that you can have it on your mobile phone is such a boon for that, because you can do it like in between other things. You got to sit, wait for somebody to come for 10 minutes. All right, boom, let's start a run and see how you can go. So it's perfectly crafted for the depth or the casual play. Either way you want to go about it.
Balatron's on my list, so I'll save it for mine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
Shouldn't be a
I'll
surprise.
go more into it then.
Balatron's
I'll
also on
talk more
Cody's
into
list,
it.
but he's gonna save it for his too.
That's right.
Yep.
So you guys have probably never even heard of Senwa Saga. Okay.
Move on.
All I'll just say is it's the best looking game I've ever played. And we've had a ton of like graphical, really impressive games. Nothing looks better than this game. And the story is really great. It's just a little short on the shorter side. I think you complete the story in like 6 or 7 hours. And it felt like a tech demo at one point. There's only like a couple different things that change up the gameplay, and then all of a sudden you're done. And that's it. So tech demo, but still really good.
I feel like there have been demos that have been that long, like legit demos that have been like 5 or 6 hours long.
Yep.
That is a short game, but if you put that much work into the graphic fidelity, I just Googled it and holy shit. Yeah. I see what you mean about the graphic fidelity.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
And in motion, you're like, oh my God. That's why I was a little bit surprised it didn't get more attention this year. And it didn't need a lot. I'm not saying it was game of the year or anything, obviously, but like none of you have even heard, Chris probably has, but no one else has even heard about it. And that's common.
But what does that say about games so much, is that you put that much work into graphics and it's cool, but is that the driving factor? And I think we've proven again and again that it's not.
It certainly is interesting to have those two, with that and Balatro, next to each other on the list. They're like very much opposites in approach, but Balatro did get Game of the Year consideration in some circles and was made by one dude, and obviously there's a much bigger team behind this. I'm not saying one's better than the other. I don't mind Sean having it where he does. It's just very different approaches, and it shows you how wide the landscape is for gaming in 2024. Like, there's all sorts of different games and things that people think make them good, and we're blessed for choices, if nothing else.
Yeah. Well, and I'm pretty sure what's the game? Senwa Saga 2, there was very little marketing, and I think it was a full cost game. And to me, that's like, we can try to break it down, and I think there is something to that. But at the end of the day, one was $70, one was like fucking what? Balatro, $15, $10?
$10. 10. I got it for 10 on my phone. Yeah.
So I think that's you have a simple gameplay, and it's super affordable, and you can play anywhere on any fucking system. That's huge.
Yeah, I'm gonna start a game while you finish. Just
do that. Outlast Trials. So good. So Cody, Outlast Trials is, have you heard of Outlast?
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
Right? It's the horror game.
Yes.
Yeah.
So this is,
I watched playthroughs of that like 5-6 years ago. It's been a while now, right?
Yeah.
Right.
So this is a co-op, designed from the ground up to be a co-op experience.
I'm now interested in.
Yeah, where you're thrown into like chambers, and you have like a mission you have to complete with your friends.
Okay.
And you're being hunted the whole time, and you have no weapons. Not really. You have bottles that can like distract bad guys, but they're gonna keep coming. And but the puzzle's like really macabre. Like you have to find keys, but the keys are in bodies, and you have to like dig around. So like Saw meets like, I don't know, co-op game designed for everybody. And the levels, like where the objectives are, change every time you play it. There's a ton of variety. Yeah, the mini games are great. What they built around it with the cosmetics and your little hub and the levels and the enemies, and there's like a little meta story going on. It's just incredible. And it's a live service game, but it's live service done the right way, not shoehorning live service into something that where it doesn't belong, but built with that in mind. And I love all the updates that I get. You know, like they update it every week with something new. And I'm like, that is an example that I really love, and I look forward to it every week.
How does it tie into the actual like original Outlast?
There's a story. I think it's a prequel, and they're basically creating Splinter Cell agents to then be activated later. Okay. So all the missions you're doing are to rewire your brain so that you can spring into action and do things like kill witnesses or things of that nature.
Kill people. Got it.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah.
We have a lot of games that are only live service, like the Hoyoverse games, like Genshin Impact. We have a lot of games that try to be live service and fail miserably. We'll have at least 2 of them on my dishonorable mention. So it's nice to see something like Outlast Trials nail the formula. A complete release with things that keep you coming back for more. That doesn't seem like it should be rocket science, but in 2024, it kind of fucking was.
And yeah, and it's number 5 on the list, which is high, but like I think back to how much we loved Left 4 Dead. I was like, man, I think Left 4 Dead, the highs are better, but I wish, like, had we had Left 4 Dead, but like weekly updates of like new scenarios and new enemies and new goals and objectives to unlock cosmetics, like, I mean, imagine how fun that would have been. But
and Left 4 Dead 2 tried to dabble with that. I guess technically there was a mode like that in 1 as well, like the versus mode that technically like every so often changed into a new map with a new setup or new, but that was not, it wasn't like the core experience of the game. That was already an add-on mode, and then they've tweaked it further, which was fine if you liked it, but it wasn't the same thing.
Yep. Yeah. Wukong, no one else is going to know this, but Dave, this is Chris's other mention of like, it's just Asian developer, China in this case, just ripping off of a different genre. And it's really, again though, it's really good. It's a great, you're going to hate this, Dave, but like it's, I don't know if there's a better game on this list where like you demonstrate your increase in skill, and like that's where the curve is. Yeah, you get a little more powerful, but like you just grow to be better at the game and better adept at what it throws at you. And that's why like I completed it and I immediately went to New Game Plus. So it's like, oh, I'm so good now and I can demonstrate it. But like the pacing's all over the, people are saying this should have been Game of the Year. No way. It is way too flawed. The pacing's all over the place. You just get one boss fight after another in some areas. It was a great first effort. I'm excited for more. It is not a Game of the Year.
It feels like a little bit of China propaganda, to be honest. It, a lot of the push for that, and in the Game of the Year nominations themselves, and the Player's Choice Award for the Game Awards, and some other stuff. It was like, this is like a campaign. Yeah. And it's a good game that deserves to get those type of mentions. But again, like the number 1 game of the year, no. And
apparently the developers cried when they didn't get it and they felt they were so deserving. And I was like, bitch, you weren't even number 2 or 3. I think general consensus, like you were pretty far from being number 1. Fucking get over it. Yeah. But I mean, whatever. So that's, oh, and a little bit of anti-wokeism, I think too. Because I think it's mostly the China thing, but a lot of people are like, I love this game. There's no diversity. There's no anything. It's like, yeah, because there's only men for the most part as characters. They're a monkey. So there's no races at all. Anyways.
That's not the only time we're going to mention the word woke in today's show in regards to a game. Stay tuned for my dishonorable mention for that.
Hey. Okay. Number 2, I'm getting to the good stuff now and I'm almost done. I'm already at number 2. The suffering is almost over, team.
Hooray.
Yeah. I think this might be one of the hardest I've ever had with one of these, differentiating 2 and 1. And I flip-flopped a lot, but I am going to go Final Fantasy Rebirth as my number 2. Because it's really good and there's so much variety. And you could argue too much, but I like it. I liked all the mini games. I thought it was really fun. I thought it changed up the pace a lot. And then Queen's Blood. Queen's Blood alone could have been like a game, and it probably would have been on my list. It's that fucking good. It gets held back a little bit by some storytelling, where it gets like a little bit long in some sections. And most importantly to me, though, the combat is meh, and that like takes it out of any really serious consideration when I wanted to make it the number one game. It's like I just found the combat to be really flashy without a lot of depth.
How can you have? I guess when it's not a huge portion of the game, that's okay. But having a game as your number 2 game when you're like, oh yeah, the thing you do most in the game, I mean, it means everything else must be super duper strong, but still, it's kind of a difficult thing to get over.
Super duper strong. The open world exploration, all the variety in the side quests and the mini games, it's all like 10 out of 10, 10 out of 10.
The characters.
Yeah, the writing, the improvements, all of it. And then the combat's not bad. It's just like, and let me make that clear. It's not bad combat. It's just like, okay, I've kind of done everything that there is to do in terms of depth and strategy, and now I'm just wailing on the bad guys. And so it's fine. It's not my favorite.
And there's fun team-up attacks, but it's sort of the Kingdom Hearts problem where it's like, it's fun to see them, but there is a certain point where like, okay, but that can't be the substance, because I'm not even doing anything when these show up. They're awesome.
Yeah.
I love watching these two characters pair up, but it's like, that's not really me doing it.
And it literally became the combat for me, Dave, to keep it interesting. I was like, I'm going to go like test all the different team-ups just to see what they were and unlock them. And that's what it became for me. So I'm sure there are people that are like, oh, you're just not good enough. There's a lot of depth if you put it up to hard. All right, man, you're right. Maybe I don't know, but
it's I don't know. It's one of those things like why force yourself?
Yeah. So then my number 1, Dave, is you know it. It's Metaphor ReFantazio.
Yeah, I did know that.
So I'm gonna start. I'm gonna say it's no Persona 5. If somebody's telling you it's Persona 5, they're wrong. The calendar system is not as polished. The combat's not quite as like exquisitely perfect. The enemies, some of them are kind of sponges. There's a little bit of balancing I thought would have improved it. And it's too long. It's a little bit too long. And whereas Persona 5, it's too long, but you didn't really feel it. And so it's fine. This, you like start to feel it.
That means it wasn't.
At some point. A little bit. Yeah. Yeah. And even with all that said, with Atlas, not quite reaching the same heights, it's pretty far above every other game, with the exception of maybe Final Fantasy of the Year. It's just the turn-based system is still very good. It's very fun. They really excel with the class. There's like a class leveling up system, like a job system where you can switch. I would love to see them bring that into like a Persona series. It was so good. My favorite part of the game by far was the depth of combat that you could get by testing out all these different paths. And classing characters into different roles and the different combinations that unlock from that. Literally, there are certain combination attacks that certain characters or certain classes have. It's just, there's so much depth. It's really good. The story, for the most part, very, very good too. I was glad to see them do like a unique take with brand new characters in a different setting than high school. That was also fun for once. And the world is really fleshed out for being like, this is our brand new fantasy world. A lot of great stuff with the lore and the dynamics and all of that. So that's my number 1.
Yeah, that's one that I'm going to get to. I'm going to find my way to get to it eventually. You
should.
Yeah.
I know. It's the demos on my system. It is one of those things where that it will find my way there eventually when I have some ability and time. But that might be 2035. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah. I mean, Persona 5 was like a generational game. And this...
It was.
At times, you almost want it to be. I don't think overall it quite makes it to that level. But the seeds are there. And it's like the first non-Persona game they've done. Not Shin Megami Tensei doesn't count. So I was glad to see they're trying new things.
I think at its height, it approaches Persona 5 Royals level. It just does not have the consistency or the staying power on those heights.
Yep.
So I think it's a perfectly fine game of the year. But like you said, Persona 5 Royal might have been game of the decade.
Yeah.
So there's a scale to it. And I think Dave will enjoy it when he finally gets to it. I'll talk about it on my list. It's on my list somewhere. But it's about time for my list. Did you not say Astro Block? I've been juggling so many different things.
Oh my God, no, you're right. That was my number 3.
That's what I was waiting
I'm
for.
sorry,
I was like,
I kind of was.
I was trying to go so fast, I skipped it.
I was like,
am I having an aneurysm?
multiple times?
Thank you. Yeah. Let me just get to it really quick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, what if I told you it was on my list?
I would be surprised you played it. I didn't know you played it. So,
Hey.
So just an extremely polished Mario Galaxy platformer. It's super joy to control. And like addictive in the same way that Mario Wonder was. This is the second time I brought up Mario, by the way, in this game. Just in Mario Wonder, it's like I just want to keep playing, not to be a completionist. I just want to see what new challenge they have or what new gimmick there is. Just so fun. I thought the boss battles are really good, better than most Mario boss battles actually. That's probably the only area where I'm like, that definitely exceeds Mario. But the PlayStation mascot, that part's fun. It's a nostalgia blast. It's really, really good. It just some parts are a little bland. There's a little more originality, I think, especially in the enemy design at times. And some of the levels, like some of them are so fun. You're like, I can't believe I'm doing this, but then they kind of fall into some basic trappings on others. But yeah, number 3, like very much not my number 1. I clarify that because it was the Game Awards number 1. But like so super great. Loved my time with it.
It's the perfect thing for PlayStation. What you needed to kind of get in that different genre of gamer almost. PlayStation has the sports games and the shooting games and the RPGs and all that stuff. Astrobot is hey, the kids can play it now. The casual gamers can play it now. And they have this extra level of like, hey, that Mario that everybody loves and keeps buying every iteration of? Well, now we kind of have something that's kind of similar. And yeah, maybe it's a bit of a clone of it, but it works. And if you can have your own IPs as part of it, fantastic.
Yep.
Yeah, that was the key to me, was like, not only did it rip off the Galaxy formula successfully and well done, to be clear, but it was also, like Mario a lot of times, a celebration of other series on the same system, right?
Yeah.
So now they get to bring in all these little tie-ins and little nods, and like, oh, like, it's a celebration of the things we like, and it feels like, much like the DCU compared to the MCU, Sony and Xbox sometimes are so busy tripping over themselves to make the best, most fidelity and the biggest, most realistic graphics and all this stuff that they forget to have games that are fun. And there's no question Astrobot was a ton of fun.
Yeah, and Chris, you're right. Like, and I think at times even like the most harrowing stories and the darkest environments, and yeah, the Astrobot was just like, yeah, we're gonna have fun.
Yep.
And it was another game, Dave, where like I wanted to record. That was the other one I talked about with like skill level. I was recording like the really tough levels, and it felt rewarding because you die, you're right back in it. So the load times like really helped. It doesn't feel so terrible.
It's such an underrated thing of gaming nowadays, when you used to die and like had to go back to the beginning of the level first of all, which was also just the most mind-numbing thing ever. And even if you didn't have to go back to the level, you had the load screen or like a checkpoint or something. Now it's like, die, okay, let's go.
Yep,
boom,
exactly.
Like, just reform, let's go, continue right where you were. I don't know, old school gamers would be like, that's not how you play this. You have to grind. No, there's other opportunities to grind. If you want to have fun, let's have fun.
You don't have the time of the fucking day to be dealing with that shit and wasting minute after minute over and over again.
And just to further prove your point, or you go back to the start of the game. You run out of lives in Mario 1. You're not going back to World 8-1. You're going back to 1-1, motherfucker.
But I look at those games and I'm like, I didn't get good at a lot of those games. And because there was no lives to worry about, you didn't have to go farm a bunch of lives, come back. You're just like, okay, you died. Try the challenge again. There's like that repetition is how I ended up getting really good at it.
Mm-hmm.
And look, that makes sense. But
I would like to see a modern Mega Man game if Capcom hadn't killed the fucking guy, because taking some things from like Dark Souls and other things that have really good challenges in them, because I'm thinking back to like Mega Man 2, which is a classic, but if I die against a robot boss, I have to play through the whole goddamn level again, and I'm like, I'm not doing that.
No.
So like, I would love to see him come back with some of the modern trappings we've added over the years, because I feel like the formula's there if he gets out of the dungeon.
Yep.
He probably won't, but we'll see. Capcom's like, we're the Monster Hunter company now, and I guess Street Fighter 6 is pretty good, and that's it.
Yeah, exactly.
So anyways, my list. As is the annual tradition, we have settled on top 10, 5 honorable mention, 5 dishonorable mention. We'll fly through the ones that are not in the top 10, and we'll save some time because I have 3 in my top 10 that are on Sean's list, so we won't talk about those a ton. This honorable mention almost included Final Fantasy XIV, which would be shocking to people who have watched these lists over the years, but Dawn Trail was not very good. It was always going to be a tough act to follow after Endwalker and wrapping up a 10-year arc of story in a very, very well-done way. It didn't need to be this bad, and it has sort of killed our group's interest in the game for the time being. It's not like it's so bad that we're out. Just the choices and some of the characters and a ton of tell, not show. Some really puzzling decisions for a game that has refined that formula over the last 10 years and then threw half that shit out the window. But it's not on the list.
Did they just run into like development crunch or something and they didn't have enough time to flesh out the script?
I don't think so. They have the cycle pretty much refined at this point, and post-COVID, they've settled on a new, slightly more spaced-out formula for it. They had plenty of time. It was just some decision-making that they talked about after the fact, like, oh, we thought this would be better received and this and that. And not everybody hates it, to be clear, and there's still some decent moments. It's not like it was a bad time, but it's a significant step back. Rapid fire through the other dishonorable mention, Multiverses officially launched in 2024, although it actually had a beta that lasted for a year back in 22-23. Microtransaction hell.
Oof.
You want to be a new player in that game and play this kind of Smash clone that admittedly has some fun moments with some cool characters. Like, who doesn't want to be Super Saiyan Shaggy? Well, good luck, because unlocking any character, let alone all the characters, is a fucking chore, or you pay a ton of money for it. So, fuck that.
I almost hate that more. Like, Mortal Kombat's just like, you want the characters, buy it. And I'm like, okay, but the Shadow Mordor sequel did that, where it's like, we're going to make the grind unbearable, or you pay. It's like, now you're just feels predatory.
And people will say, like, oh, well, you could try out characters in the training mode so you know what you want to put your time into. And I'm like, does anybody actually, like, if you were to do that in Smash, who the fuck has ever done that in Smash Brothers?
Yeah.
Nobody goes into the training mode and they're like, I'm going to try this out. No, you do it by playing and messing around and falling off a cliff.
Yep.
And, Suicide Squad.
Yep.
Speaking of live service games that can go fuck themselves, there's one massive failure from this year. 8 years of development only to come out with outdated, awful ideas that got tanked immediately. Good job, everybody.
It ended, and we will talk about it, but not this week. But Cody will think it's hilarious when we get to it.
I want to be entertained.
Yeah.
Speaking of 8 years of development, Concord also died a horrible, awful death this year. Might be the biggest failure in gaming since E.T.? Superman 64? Like, that caliber of awful, horrible development hell. Again, 8 years. The game lasted 2 weeks before getting pulled. 2 weeks after 8 years of development. And it wasn't even like we're going to pull it down and reassess and reevaluate and come back. It just died. IGN gave it a 7.
Yeah.
So good on IGN, by the way.
Go woke, go broke.
That doesn't mean much, though.
Just
like,
No. Speaking of Go Woke, Go Brook, Dustborn is a dishonorable mention because, I don't know, making an entire game trying to lampoon the idea of wokeness is almost as stupid as actual wokeness could be. All you did was pretend like you were doing some kind of shitty Saints Row humor, and instead none of it hit the mark, and you forgot to make the game fun. So, good job.
Whew, I mean, how do you... Man, satire is a hard thing to do, isn't it? When you try to poke fun at something and you screw up, it's the worst.
Man, even Borderlands 2, which is pretty, 3, which is pretty well received. You're like, what happened to your joke writing? Is it just the same, but now it's another game and we're sick of it now? It just did not work.
And they're talking about that now for Borderlands 4. They're like, all right, we may have gone a little too far with like the pee-pee poo-poo humor, so we'll see if we can get back to like what you liked about 1 and 2, which would be welcomed.
Chris, do you know who the publisher of that Dustborn was? I just looked it up.
I don't remember.
Quantic Dream. You know
There we go.
No.
Yeah. I remember it's somebody notable, but I don't remember who.
Yep, our good old friend David.
And for the last dishonorable mention, Skull and Bones, which somehow managed to be a worse Assassin's Creed Black Flag 10 years after Assassin's Creed Black Flag, with, again, like 7 years of development. It was originally shown, I think in 2017. It had a release date originally of like summer 2018. Finally came out this past year and fucking tanked.
I wonder how many of these developers, if you were to ask them what like sunk cost means, or if they've ever been to like an economics class, if that would like register at all. You know, I get you spend a lot of time and money, but like you cut that in like 4 years. This still sucks, but like you're saving yourself so much time and money still.
And embarrassment.
Yeah. Anyways, wow, yikes.
Honorable mention will be quick. It has one new game, Zenless Zone Zero, which is the Hoyo formula. So if you like it, great. And if you don't, probably not going to interest you. More action-based, more of like a parrying, dodging type system. If you like the stuff, you'll like it. If you don't, fine. It's only on my honorable mention, and I enjoy it quite a bit. I have 3 remakes in honorable mention because none of them really stuck out enough to make it, which was Paper Mario Thousand Year Door, which didn't really add much at all, but it's just maybe the best Paper Mario game, a really good game. Final Fantasy Pixel Remaster, which, again, doesn't really reinvent anything, except for some quality of life upgrades that are nice, but it is also 6 games in one package, so if you can get that for like $30, that's pretty fucking good. And Ace Attorney Investigations, which, you know, is not really a remake per se, although it is a remake. It's just a remake of a game we never actually got in the States, so it's in weird territory. But nice to see it finally make it, even if really only one of the two is worth it.
Yeah, did you play it?
Not yet.
I haven't either. I'm going to, but apparently it's like 40 hours long. So I'm like, I need to be like prepared.
Right, so you can't just dabble in it then.
Yeah.
All right.
Chris, I'll throw in Silent Hill 2. Just you were talking about remakes that were really good that didn't make the list. Really, really faithful, really well done, super amazing. Maisie would have been mad if I didn't bring it up. So
yeah, which is good. Top 10 starts with a surprising one, maybe. Dragon Ball Sparking Zero has a stupid ass fucking name, but it was number 4 in sales this year, which just goes to show you the power of Dragon Ball Z as an IP, even in 2024. And it wasn't like that was just printing automatic money, because Xenoverse 2 also came out in 2024, and it did fine. But more importantly, it was return to the Budokai Tenkaichi formula, which is the fighting game style that people really enjoyed, and it showed, because now all of a sudden you have a much more graphically impressive version of those games from 15 years ago that still manages to be really fun and doesn't care about balance, as it shouldn't.
Yeah.
Because if you have a Cyberman and you have Blue Vegeta, those two things really shouldn't be square and even when they fight. It should probably be a slaughter. So,
yeah, Dave, that's what you know as Vegeta.
right.
So, Chris, do you mean?
But he's muted now, so
it's
fine.
like 3D fight. It's not like
Vegetable.
2D plane.
It's like
pseudo. It is and it isn't.
it is and it isn't.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a 3D space, but you're kind of on a line with each other, kind of like the old Tales games. Like you're in a 3D area, but you're sort of lined up with each other at all times. In a similar vein, number 9 is Marvel vs. Capcom Fighting Collection, if for no other reason than, again, like I mentioned when it was announced, surprisingly during E3, it's amazing that the game is actually released on anywhere. Now it's on all the systems, so you can play some of these games that have been buried for forever, and they're all very faithfully done recreations. Like, they went and took the best versions of each one from the arcade days, and, like, again, small quality of life stuff, training modes on games that have never had them. So for fighting game aficionados, big deal. For other fans, probably didn't mean anything, but for me, it was important.
Fighting games.
Number 8 is going to be sad for Jason, but at least it's mentioned. It's Helldivers 2, which I really wanted to scratch that Left 4 Dead style itch, and I did enjoy it. It's on my list, but it never really grabbed me completely.
It didn't either. Why is that?
I don't know. I love the fact that it's all cheesy, and, like, you know, the people have probably seen, like, the intro video and stuff, and the guy and his family getting killed and whatever. Like, it certainly leans into what it does well, but I don't know. I think it's akin to what you said, Sean, 'cause I think I overheard you talking about, like, by the time we got into it, we played with people that were already way into it, so it sort of felt like being led around by the nose. I still enjoyed it, and it's my number 8, but I wasn't like, oh my god, it's my favorite game ever. After playing a couple months of it, I was like,
Yeah.
okay. And as Jason says, it did lose some momentum. It had some issues with regionalization and where it was available for a while. It had some choices on its nerfs, which is always a tricky thing to do. If you're going to nerf something, you're going to piss people off. If anything, you're better off buffing other things to that level.
Yep.
A few different things that helped it kind of fade away more towards the end of the year. But it did have a revival towards the end of the year, so we'll see. Number 7 is Trails Through Daybreak, which I won't spend a lot of time on. It is refreshing, though, considering I've gotten a little bit burned out on Trails games, to see it take a much more mature approach. It still falls into some of the same traps. You know, for example, Chapter 3 just feels like it goes on for about 5 hours longer than it needs to, which is a long time in an 80-hour game. So it still has some issues with pacing and deciding what to cut and what not to. But a more mature cast and a lot more mature storytelling goes a long way. So I'm much more interested in this new region than I was with, say, Trails Through, Over, Against, whatever the fuck preposition Reverie was. Number 6 is finally an opportunity for Dave and Cody to chime in, because I have College Football 25 as my number 6. You two should have the floor first, and I'll talk about why it's here for me afterwards.
Go ahead, Dave. You can start.
All right. I mean, first of all, college football is vastly superior to Madden, and I've never really been able to put my finger on why. And this year, I think I really kind of figured out is that Madden feels like I'm a robot, and there's zero life, energy, feeling, emotion, or anything in this game. College football, on the other hand, maybe it's because I have a connection to my school. Maybe it's because of the bands that come in the background, the fight songs, the recruiting, the connections you feel to these people that you recruit over your dynasty or something like that. Maybe it's because you take a small school and build them into a powerhouse on sometimes. It feels like I care about these. When you play Madden, it doesn't feel like I care one little bit. And every Madden game I've ever picked up, I've been like, all right, this is boring, and I stopped playing it. College football, I still had times up until this most recent one came out that I wanted to boot up College Football 2013 because it was still that good, even though it was an old game on PS3. This one now, it's back out. It's going to be redone. And as Cody mentioned earlier, they're still giving updates and updating players. And now I get to say the players' names and venues and all the things that happen. They update jerseys throughout the year as new jerseys come out. Like, they have scratched every single itch that you could possibly want from a connection to a game that I had when I was younger.
When you describe it, it sounds like to me that the allegory that comes to mind is like the original Lion King versus the Lion King remakes, which are just like
Soulless.
completely soulless. They don't capture anything in the animation. It's just dead, dull, lifeless. And that's what I get the sense like college football versus Madden.
Madden is like like such a boring like simulator of, okay, here's football. And again, the NFL inherently, as I like the NFL, is a more boring version of football than college football because there's a lot more room for innovation and ideas and creativity in college football. You move guys around, guys play weird positions, you just weird shit. You just get creative, run trick plays and do weird shit. And because I knew Dave was going to cover a lot of that and I didn't want to step on that. But inside the game, and specifically on offense, when you play NCAA, they have so you used to have like 5-6 option plays, right? Back in like 2014. We all love running the option. It's way more fun. I now have the ability to run an in-depth version of Wildcat where my running back is my quarterback and I can throw out of it, not just run with a power attack or some sweet bullshit. There are so many different versions of read options, RPOs, speed options, triple options. There's such a deep version of a playbook. In Madden, I go from one team to one team, and I'm basically running the same versions of the same plays. There's so many playbooks, and I went through and found one that I like for my dynasty that is very option-based. And the biggest one, as insane as this sounds, Madden tried to put RPOs in and options from a football standpoint years ago, and your fucking offensive line runs down the field and gets you a 5-yard penalty every single fucking time. NCAA fixed it. Your line doesn't run down the field. They stay in pass blocking. If you run, you better run correctly and find the hole correctly because they're not run blocking for you. The fact that I get to sit there and in my dynasty convert my quarterback who's fast to a running back, and now I have a quarterback, and I have 2 quarterbacks in the backfield, and I run an option. I've just sat there doing what Dave said. I move guys to weird positions. I try new shit every season. I tweak my playbook. There is so much replayability in NCAA because it's so vast for what college football is, because it's vastly different compared to what Madden is, which is 32 teams that all run a slight variation of the same fucking shit.
It feels like we have gotten to the point where Madden probably could be developed by people who don't know football.
Absolutely.
And this sounds like people who absolutely know football.
Yes, they had to have some people do significant research to find a way to run these plays and do all this type of shit. And Madden, you can take the same playbook year after year after year, and you're running this. I mean, I can go into Madden, I can run the same fucking play I've run since 2007. There's a fucking tight end, running back, pair, or twins, single set, out route, deep post, slant. It's the same fucking play I've run for almost 20 years of my life. There's shit in NCAA that I was like, oh, fuck. Someone runs that play in real life? That's cool. I'm using the Central Florida's playbook. That's what I landed on. Do I watch Central Florida? No, I don't fucking watch Central Florida in college football. But I messed around enough to find this is a really cool avenue to run fun, creative plays. And to step one more forward, I played as a quarterback in the Road to Glory mode where you're locked on your player and all that. I just made a wide receiver in the past couple of weeks, and I was like, oh shit, this game also lets me I just break off my route, and all of a sudden my quarterback threw an interception because I wasn't where I was supposed to be. I can't cheat the system. I have to actually play and kind of do what I want to do, and I can audible myself once I get better. But I was playing the career mode as a receiver, and I've never actually had that much fun doing it when I wasn't a quarterback.
It's insane how much, like I said, replayability, because you can play every single position that is available there, and it's still fun. I just started middle linebacker. I am terrible at defense on these games. It's fun. It's actually really fun.
And I know the jersey thing is a very it sounds like a really specific thing. It's like the fact that I can throw a different jersey on my team every single game I play with a different combo. You play as Oregon. There's 12 jerseys for Oregon. They go back 3 years, 4 years with all their variations. the game just looks different. In the NFL, everyone has 2 or 3 jerseys. At a certain point, after hours of playing it, your eyes just gloss over. Like I've done this before, and I found ways for months and months to find a new way to play NCAA, and it's different than it was 3 weeks ago, 5 weeks ago, whatever.
All right, what say you, Chris?
I'm not the college football guy. Those two are.
Yeah.
I'm not really the football guy. But I did pick this up when it was free. They ran an extended demo. You had a certain amount of hours. So I went through a running back career mode and had a blast. And for all the reasons that they mentioned, it's just nothing about the pro game appeals to me, especially in video game form. Whereas just the feeling of, I think I let them kind of choose where I would end up, and among the best schools was Nebraska. I don't give a fuck about Nebraska, but again, just going out there with team colors and fight songs and all this shit just makes you feel more attached. So for me, I had a blast playing it. The gameplay felt so much better than the last time we tried to fuck around with Madden. We have videos on the channel of us doing it. It's a bad time. Instead, you can tell a lot of people who cared about football put time into this. It's that simple. Now, this is a tough act to follow because sports games are annualized. The common refrain is, oh, it's the same thing with new rosters. They've already spent a lot of the past 6 months or so putting in the updates that those two guys mentioned. Can they make a feasible release for next year feel distinct enough that they don't fall into the Madden trap? That's going to be the biggest question I have for 2025.
Have the updates, if you were going to compare like Madden 1 year to the next, and these updates compared to the base game, have they already been more than the yearly iteration?
Absolutely.
To me, that's crazy.
Yeah.
And that's why I asked.
Yeah, and I think they tried to be nice about it, but I think they were kind of transparent of like, hey, this game's not necessarily done.
Yeah.
And I thought they were pretty open about that. People were excited we're going to buy the game no matter what. But the fact that they were like, hey, we're going to do some stuff as the game goes on. NIL lets us to do a little bit more. We can add some jerseys. Teams are coming out with new stuff. Like, oh, this team, the week 4 of this in the college football season, they had a new jersey. 2 weeks later, they popped it into the game. They've added plays. They've tweaked defenses. They've tweaked a lot of shit. And there's still some avenues. I mean, that you could do famous moments version. They used to have that where you replay certain like famous games. I mean, Dave's got one they should fucking throw in the game next year that would happen a couple weeks ago. We used to have actual mascots that were playable. You could play as your entire team of mascots. Just a goofy mode to be able to do. There's a lot of avenues. I mean, Dave's probably played, the Road to Glory mode. A lot of the mini game versions of stuff. Also, that harkens back to the days that where Madden was great. We used to have those little mini games that you would prep players and train them and get them better. Yeah. And you would like do through the tackling dummies and all that. And those are back in the Road to Glory mode, and they're great. I've played through almost all of them for the different positions. I haven't played linebacker yet, but I'm going to do it now that Dave's saying it's worth it. All of that shit was already more than any Madden game is. I mean, this is easily the best football game that's existed. I don't think it's even remotely close. And that's nothing against the old NCAA games, but they actually built on the engine correctly and gave us modern-day crazy-ass college football. I mean, I'm playing for, like Chris said, I'm playing for Coastal Carolina on a teal field. It's like the weirdest shit in the world, but I'm like, this is so fucking fun to be a part of.
They built, the game was already fun, and the best part to me is that had they just basically said, oh man, we can make college football again. Here's 2013 and 2024 with updated rosters. Here you go, guys. I would have been like, hey, this is fun. I'm glad they made this. Mm-hmm. But when they did this and made the gameplay better, they updated as they go, and they took all these innovations on top of then making it feel modernized. It was like, oh man, like you didn't have to do all this, but I'm so glad you did.
It's a franchise that was dead for 12 years from a company that has no track record of being able to right the ship. So to me, it's the biggest upset in gaming. And the fact that it ended up number 1 in sales is pretty remarkable.
Yeah, I was going to say, check it out, America.
And they hacked that a little bit by packaging it with Madden, so inherently copies got sold a little bit more. I think even without them doing that, it probably sells more copies than anything. Again, this is going to get kids, unfortunately, their hopes up. Like a 9-year-old's going to get his hopes up, and in 4 years, there's a good chance that college football 29 or whatever sucks.
Yeah.
I'm like, man, but at least you as a 9-year-old, you'll always have this game. Like, I really mean that. This game's going to get played for years and years. No matter if they fuck it up going forward, they will always have this one, and this one's replayability will always exist.
So
but I think you bring up 9-year-old, my 10-year-old and 8-year-old love it.
Exactly.
They absolutely love playing this game. It's insane.
So Cody and Dave, did you notice that even though it was a game that I didn't care about, I found ways to engage with you?
I asked questions.
Did you?
I asked questions earlier.
I asked you a
What's funny is, while you were talking and I wasn't paying
more.
attention, I was actually looking up all the games you were talking about.
Oh, that's great for me to now know.
Yeah.
You
And
didn't
Dave was
comment
too.
At all.
Well, you were moving. I was a game behind you every time, but like you ran through, and I was
Tell
like,
me to slow down. I would have.
no, we don't have time to do that. I was very in depth on Outlast for like 15 minutes there.
Yeah, that's true. Well, because I piqued your interest in Outlast.
Yeah, exactly. I went down a rabbit hole with that.
All right. Well, I didn't. I that's legitimately on my list. I didn't just put it in there as an opportunity for them to talk about it because I could have talked about it afterwards.
I had a feeling it was going to be on your honorable mention or maybe on your top 10 because you had mentioned you're like, oh, that was actually surprisingly fun.
Yeah. Into the top 5 we go. A couple of these will go relatively quickly, one of which we'll have to talk about a little bit more. Number 5 is Persona 3 Reload. It was nice to see Persona 3 with Persona 5 trappings. That's really all there is to it. And is it enough that people will enjoy it? I think so. If you were on the fence about trying to go back and play the old ones, which have been re-released in other formats, there's a lot of quality of life stuff that was there that should make it a lot more tenable. And for some people, they really like the cast or they really like the setting, like they enjoy the vibes of Tartarus and all that. Persona 5 is still a much better game than this. Sorry, everybody. But this helps bridge the gap in a pretty significant way. So to me, because they put in all that level of care and stuff, they had to do a new voice cast, but for the most part, they did a good job. But just having more ways to spend time with these characters that you like and also get like stat boosts, the thing that Persona 5 did so well, right? Like spend days improving a thing, whether that's your stats or your character's stats or whatever. That formula was all here with the darker tone and the setting and all the seriousness that comes with Persona 3, and its very sad ending.
See, Chris, you're reminding me of all the points I had, which is fine. I talked too much already anyway, but I was going to say what a good year for JRPGs and turn-based JRPGs. We've had so many, Reload being one of them. Romancing Saga 2 was very good as well. It's like it was a resurgence, it felt like. So I was happy to see it. And
Unicorn Overload was my last off of honorable mention. So like we're spoiled for choice, and boy, was that seeming very unlikely about 10 years ago when it seemed like that side of gaming was dying.
Yeah. Yep.
Number 4 is Astrobot. I won't spend a ton of time on it. It was on Sean's list. But again, I just can't put it any higher because I am still a little bit jaded about it just being Mario Galaxy.
It is.
I'm sorry. And props to them for pulling the trigger. And again, it benefits gamers on just whatever system. We don't need to be tribalists in 2024. But in general, it's just like, okay, I don't know about giving it Game of the Year when it's really just another game's formula.
And super polished, and like the unique levels are very well done, but it's just the same game.
Yeah, and they have their own takes on it. There's their own movement options that are different and whatever. I'm not saying they're the same. It's why I like it on this list. It's why I liked it as a finalist for Game of the Year, just not the pick, because it just feels like too much of the like copy my homework, but don't show that you copied it, you know?
Yep.
Number 3 is The Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom.
Cody, you asked me dishonorable mention, and I fucked up. But go ahead, Chris, and we'll maybe if there's time we can get back to it.
Yes. Well, the problem with this game is how you approach it. Because there's a way to make it basically push a button and be Link, there is an issue where the question of this is Zelda's first game in 40 years, and sometimes the combat boils down to pushing the Link button and not being Zelda at all.
Yep.
Is a problem. I ignored that problem and didn't push that button except when forced to, and had a better time for it. Now, you can argue that there is maybe a better way to blend this. Zelda basically has 2 approaches to this whole thing. She can copy stuff, like beds and trampolines and plants and whatever the fuck, and use that for platforming and exploration in a way that feels very much like the franchise and is very, very good. And there's the combat side, where you either become Link, which again has its own problems in a Zelda game, or you just summon a bunch of stuff that fights for you. There is a puzzle-based approach that you can see why they did that. It's the whole idea of Zelda being the smart one, the wisdom part of the Triforce, where it's like, okay, she has to outsmart everybody else. Just what enemy is best positioned for this encounter? And the answer is, well, usually just the most powerful one you have on hand.
Yep.
So either you're doing the most powerful thing you have, or a swarm of tiny little things to be annoying and take things out, or you're Link. That part's the part where I'm not sure, because we've seen Zelda and or Tetra be effective in combat in the past. So I wish they could have blended the whole exploration side of it that was very, very well done. I had a blast doing it with the combat side that was a little lackluster. That sounds like me being negative about a game that's my number 3, but because I ignored Link, I still had a really good time. I get the complaint, though.
Yeah, well, I ignored Link as well. I do weird stuff like that. I did with Pokemon, where I was like, I'm not Gigantamaxing or whatever. It just became a slog because they very clearly did not design the game for that. They want you to be Link, and I was like, well, I don't want to. And they're like, fine, then suffer. And I said, I will. Thank you, and I did.
Because you're hard-headed like
yeah.
that.
And and the first like 2 hours are maybe a little bit more, just incredible. The sense of discovery. I was like, oh, this is what I missed about like the old Zelda games. And then I was like, oh, I've done everything I'm gonna do in terms of like variety with exploration for the most part. There's a couple exceptions that are very good, but I mean, like it felt like 90% of the game is like, oh, it's a bed bridge. I've solved it. It's a bed bridge again. So I felt like I'm glad they tried it, but it needed a little bit more time in the oven to really flesh it out if they really wanted to make it her distinct game. And I think they should have.
It's tough because you can see the design choices behind it. They make sense from that standpoint. Did it always succeed? No. But I respect what they tried to do. Had fun going around the overworld. So it's going to make it up this high, and it can be no higher. Which leaves the top two, which are both games that were on Sean's list. The question is, did I make Balatro my game of the year, or was it Metaphor ReFantasio?
I think
It was Balatro.
My number 2 game is Balatro.
Damn.
Oh!
Wow. You had the same number 1. That good, huh?
I'm going to get to why that's significant later.
This
But
was a tough
continue.
one for me because I want to reward Balatro for being 1.5 dudes, because it's really just the soundtrack is the only thing that Local Thunk didn't do himself, which includes all the little references on the Jokers that he drew with pixel art by himself. And as Sean alluded to, like the graphic design, the sound design, that just, it's all sort of like the Vegas effect, where it's like you're just going to get sucked in and you're not going to notice how much time has passed in a run. For me, I wish Sean had gotten to the point where he had a run where he went absolutely crazy, because I feel like it would be like 5th on his list if he ever had. Not this high, but the
What's
key...
weird though? I would get to the point where I just like, I beat it, so like I'm good. And then I stopped like caring. And that was the wrong approach, it sounds like. I needed to keep
The
going.
right approach is to break the game as much as possible.
Yeah.
As Dave has seen in the video that he watched of me playing it and is on the channel, so if you want to check it out, like you eventually get to the point where you break the scoring board and it's like, okay, now you're in E. And you're like, what do you mean I'm in E? It's like, yeah, because you've gone so far into billions now that we're doing exponential stuff. When you just get a massive combo off, like... And again, some of that is having to play enough to unlock the Jokers. You need to unlock Blueprint so you can copy a Joker. You need to unlock the other copy Joker that copies the one on the far left. You can stack those things that copy each other. So now it's like, yeah, you can get Polychrome, Red Seal, Steel, whatever the fuck's things, and you can make those happen. But now you're starting to talk about massive Joker exploitation to go huge. Because it's not really that hard to beat Anti-8 anymore once you've played this game a decent amount. That no longer is the goal. In the beginning, as people are learning it, it's actually somewhat difficult. When you unlock everything in the game and then start going crazy, that's when I think it's the most fun.
And then at that point, you can then make it your own difficulty at that point. You can say like, okay, I'm going to set out on this deck to beat the game only playing 3 of a kinds, because that's what I want to do this time. And then you find the right cards, you get the right Jokers, and then you get a little lucky. And I think that's the thing that sucks you back in the most, is that when you set out to do something, execute your strategy properly, and fail because you had bad luck, you're like, oh, no, I'm doing this again because I want to do it. And then when it hits and you hit the lucky part, or you fall into the strategy that you want to do, you just feel that much better when your phone starts or your Switch starts vibrating, goes, and it feels like a machine gun's going off because you've scored so many points.
Yeah.
Look, and it gets credit for rewiring Dave's brain, because your approach would have been, well, once I die, I'm like, oh, and like, what's the point anymore? And I have to start over. And then you're not saying that. And I'm like, oh, great. It's changed you fundamentally as a person.
At a certain point, it's poker. The purpose of poker is repetition. The purpose of poker is that you never finish, that you finish when you say you finish. So at this point, having a card game, there is nothing that is discordant from that, because that's what cards are. You just keep playing until you decide to finish.
So now just think about Dark Souls like poker.
No, that's completely different, because when you die, you're dead.
All right. I hijacked Chris Lisk.
That's
Chris,
fine.
continue.
No, you got to get him to change his mind, except he's not going to. But I mean, look, at the end of the day, this sold somewhere between 4 million and 4.5 million copies this year. When it went to mobile and it re-released back in October, it took another step. It had a pretty successful release back in February, but it went to the next level. It dethroned Minecraft in the Google Play Store. Minecraft's been on number 1 in that list for like 6 years. Balatro dethroned it. Nothing else in the last 6 or 7 years has done that. So to me, it's like, I wouldn't have really had any qualms with making it number 1. but I don't think it's the best game of the year. So I had to put it number 2, and who knows? Maybe 8 years from now, I'll look back like I would at 2017 and be like, I fucked up. But I don't think that's going to be the case here.
Let's time out really quick because according to Cody, he's doing research. So I want to give him a chance to ask his question.
I'm literally reading the description of this.
Why not? So ask the question.
No, but you guys are good. You don't want to ask you on. Keep going.
All right.
I'm literally reading through, like literally on the App Store right here because it's $10.
I believe you, and I like how you're using our podcast for like self improvement kind of. Like,
yeah, exactly.
I'm learning.
Well, I'm here
I'm
and I'm not
engaged, but
I'm here and I'm not
learning.
getting distracted at home by anything else. So I actually have time to think to myself right here.
Yeah, he's kind of like a super
Sean,
fan.
Yeah.
You understand, Sean, that you trying to make me use this podcast to better myself has been your literal goal for 15 years now.
Yeah, but I mean, I want some engagement. It is a podcast, right?
Allegedly.
He's just allegedly. It's a video cast now.
So let's wrap with number 1, which is Metaphor Refantasio. And I waffled about this a lot, but I like the itch that Persona 5 gave me, and this scratches it pretty satisfactorily. And that's not just enough of a bar to clear. I don't want to say some of the same things Sean did, but to me, I don't know. The archetype system was important. But to me, it was also like, there's no bad characters in this cast. We don't have anybody who's dumb and played it for laughs, like a Ryuji, who I know some people love, and I like too, don't get me wrong. But like, everybody here is pretty savvy. They all come from different walks of life. Most of them are from different races. It really helps build the world's lore.
Yep.
Because of just the people you encounter in your own party, let alone the other social links or confidants or whatever the fuck anything's called anymore. So like, to me, it was like, this is brand new. It's obviously very Persona 5 in particular coded, but I really like what they did as far as like, the title is stupid, but the overarching metaphor that frames the game as like this whole winning over the populace and how that works in both a tangible and intangible way is a much smarter approach than almost anything the last 3 Persona games have done, which is IDK fight God.
Yeah.
We're not sure. Like, this actually had something with stakes that felt real, and that the Persona games have all done that through the first 3/4 of the game, and then all of a sudden at the very end went off the rails, whereas this one's like, all right, we have both a compelling main villain and an overarching setup that I like quite a bit.
I read something where they have Luis is finally Persona has like a Sephiroth. And I don't know if I would go quite that far, but I see what they meant.
Yeah.
Like a compelling villain to serve as the foil for the entirety of the game.
He's very good, and like Shido is solid in 5, but like Luis is better.
Yeah, yeah.
And 4 and 3, I don't think really come close. 4 and 3 is more about like fighting despair or the environment than it is any one particular villain. Like, I like Adachi, but I'm not intimidated by him in any way, right? Like stuff like that. So for them to nail it this much on what's supposed to be a new IP, what will hopefully be a new series going forward, I don't know. Like Sean said, the calendar system's not quite as good. Some of the dungeons feel too samey, especially the non-story ones. Like, you have like 3 environments you can go to. It's a tower. It's a field.
Yep.
It's like, there's some stuff that I wish had been done a little bit better in a game this long with this much care and attention, but by God, it does a lot really well. And I don't know, the fact that you're on this weird ship that moves with arms and legs, and then you get woken up in the middle of the night, and it's like, and the soundtrack's going crazy, and you're like, what the fuck is happening? But it all works. Like, you got some like Gregorian chant guy in the background singing without stopping. And you're like, all of it clicked.
He's rapping in like Latin, and they got an actual like monk from somewhere to do it. It's wild.
Yeah. So
What more could you want?
Yeah.
So it's certainly weird and different, but in a lot of ways that work. And there were some surprises along the way. A couple story beats I wasn't expecting that I thought they did really well. So like in general, it's gonna have to go down as number 1. It's the same one for me and Sean, and I don't know how often that happens.
That means it's platinum, and that'll mean more later. But just note that. Platinum game. If there's agreements on the number 1s in a year, and it's happened a couple times, but it's rare, like Chris said, but that is our show's like number 1 designation when we agree on a number 1. When Chris and I agree on a number 1.
Puts it in a new category for the year. It must be really that good for that year, or that year just sucked. There was only one good game.
No, it's usually, these days.
You could just suck at just one good game.
Different years do have different weight of what the game of the year is. And I think when we re-summarize our year or like looked back at the decade in 2020, we really showed how much of a variance that could have. Like 2017, holy shit, what a year.
Yeah.
20, other years, not so much.
Yeah. Like 2023 was going to be Baldur's Gate 3 100 times out of 100. But, if Balatro came out in 2022, would it have been my game of the year? Probably.
Right.
Yeah, if it goes through the same arc, probably. So it just, sometimes years get stacked up. This was supposed to be a down year for gaming. It didn't have the highs of last year, but there was a lot of really good stuff this year.
Yeah, I was surprised. There's a lot of games too that came out that I wasn't even on my radar.
Yeah.
And it was great. Yeah, and of course Jason brings up there's still some games I didn't even get to play this year.
Yep.
Like every year. And I'm sure Chris, like Rebirth would be on your list.
It was supposed to be my last honorable mention and I forgot it.
Yeah.
I'll be playing it as soon as 3 has a release date.
Exactly.
I'll play
Dave
1 and 2.
I feel like it's a big maybe for Dave once they all come out, but we'll see.
And Jason, you should play Metaphor, yes, because you liked Persona 5 a lot and you'll like that. That's guaranteed.
Dave, I'm glad you brought up the relitigating of past years because that's absolutely episode idea that I have, and I've already started work.
Your favorite thing to do.
What?
He started work
Love
again.
doing it.
What did you say,
He's
Dave?
working. I said it's your favorite thing to do.
It is my favorite thing to do. It is my favorite thing to do. Yes. And I've already done work, which is a lot, actually, to go back, finding the episode, listening through all of it and seeing, and I'm writing down, what did Dave say? What did Chris say? What did I say? And, making a list and then saying, okay, now how does that change? Because then I have to go back and remember what came out that year and then say what I think is the best and then have you, because I don't want you guys to have to, do a bunch of homework, too. Yeah, on my idea.
He's actually doing your homework for you, Dave. I don't know why
you're
criticizing.
I'm going to give you a
him.
bunch of movies or games or whatever, and I'll be like, okay, now let's say what the best game of whatever it was. We can't do it all in one episode, but it's a work in progress.
Just slip me the notes. I'll make sure to change it a little bit so the teacher doesn't know better.
You're right. It's going to be ChatGPT. Just change it around a little bit, delete the history, you're fine.
Boom, done.
And that's the end of our look back at 2024. That means we are finally out of the 7 straight weeks of things that have been planned for a while. Not that I'm relieved or anything, but it is kind of nice because it's now we can do all sorts of other things. There's going to be a trivia show probably in a few weeks. There's going to be a Suns cast at some point. Maybe when there's a Jimmy Butler trade. Maybe when Bradley Beal dies. I don't know.
I've already planned the next
Maybe
2
he's
weeks.
gonna play well.
That you're I already planned Bradley Beal's death.
I'm thinking the next 2 weeks. One is it's just a grab all show that I'm saying I'm hijacking to be the Sean's takeover episode. Really, it's just
Sean grabbing.
There are
everything.
topics that I feel like would be fun to talk about, which we've done before. This is just a different lens. And then I think we should probably do a Suns cast because I'm going to explode.
Well, I think we either have 2 weeks or 3 weeks for that. We had to decide if we just wait till the trade deadline, and if something happens before then, we pivot, or because at a certain point the dust has to settle, and we may not know until closer to the trade deadline if both Riley and Butler are going to be stubborn. What the hell's going on with any of that?
You're right. You're right.
I think that's
just
February.
There's so much. One of my hot takes recently was we got to move Bradley Beal to the bench. And then we did. And I was like, I'm missing so much content.
No. I'm the coach. I knew it all along.
So I think
and we won 3 in a row. Oh my god.
Yeah, and then we lost to the Hawks because nobody wanted to grab a rebound.
Yep.
Yep. I think that's the 5th. I think is the trade deadline.
Yeah.
Maybe Dave can check.
Yeah,
it's around there. So that's 3 weeks out. We would be doing it the eve of the trade deadline if we did it in 3 weeks. But we can see again. Maybe the 6th.
This 6th at 1:00. So
okay. Then maybe I don't know. We'll see as we get closer. Ideally, if something happens, whether it's a trade or nothing being just declared the Suns are trading Beal, one way or the other before the deadline. But who knows? There's a lot of stubborn people involved in this.
And like you said, trivia. We have that year litigation episode. And then I actually planned out not planned, but I've thrown out we could do this and this and this, and it took me to March. Yeah. Now, some of that was, here's a week where we can talk about something topical. So it's not just plan. But it just goes to show you, we're not hurting for ideas.
No. And I've settled on the next, basketball look-back game show kind of deal that we did with scoring.
Oh, yeah.
I have another one ready of those for at some point. They're pretty evergreen, so it's not like it's a rush. We have other stuff we should get to after weeks of pre-planned stuff. But that one's ready to go, too, and I think those are fun. So
yeah. Nice.
And if I could have a tight 45 seconds on, I mentioned earlier that 10 years ago we were talking about me turning 30. I find it funny how little I care that I'm turning 40 tomorrow. It's all right, it's an age.
Tomorrow, happy birthday, Dave.
It's not his birthday yet.
Yeah.
You're going to be over the hill.
In 2.5 hours it will be.
Yeah, then he can say happy birthday then. He can't say it now.
Yeah, whatever.
Doesn't mean anything.
But yeah, I find it funny. I was freaked the fuck out about turning 30. About 40, I'm like, man, whatever. And people used to throw parties like with black balloons and walkers and stuff where it's like, you're 40, you're over the hill, you're dead now.
Yeah.
And now it's like, yeah,
you're dead.
I'm 40. I don't care.
I think I
Pretty
care more about 40 than 30, but I didn't really care at all about 30, and I don't really care much about 40. So
I find it funny that how much people put so much of an emphasis on turning 40 because it felt like that was you were past middle age when age expectancy was like 68. And now it's like, whoa, you're like past middle age now. You're on the way down. Now age expectancy is around 80 or so. And it's like, okay, now I'm at middle age.
I think it's weird though that I very distinctly remember my dad's 40th. And that freaks me out a little bit in the sense of like, oh my God, how is it possible that I'm now there when I remember his 40th like it was like yesterday, like very clearly. And that is weird because I don't remember his 30th birthday. I don't give a shit. I was like a little fucking kid.
My kids will remember me turning 40. Like they will.
Yeah.
They're old enough.
I think Kayla will be 40 and you'll be
in 30 years.
Dead.
Yes.
And you'll be 120.
Dead.
It's gonna be sad if we do the podcast long enough that one of us dies. It's gonna be fucking brutal.
Oh yeah, coming to you this week. It's Dave's funeral.
Let's live. We'll go live from the funeral.
I think specifically it needs to be on a Tuesday where you're getting buried. You're like, yeah, we're gonna be off next week. Dave died.
Yeah,
that's why he's gone.
So we're gonna do a podcast that kind of looks back at Dave. And
I mean,
it's great that we did Dave's wedding on the podcast, so like it just kind of.
I mean, I specifically would look forward to Sean's funeral episode as I'm still alive and he has died.
I would be mad.
So much.
And you're gonna be like, oh, you're gonna live to 120, huh?
Yeah. And Cody's like, look, the obvious intro to this episode would be, I told you so. And I'm really fighting saying there. But, and then you just do a retrospective.
I wouldn't spend an hour dancing on your grave of, wow, Sean worked out so much, he had a heart attack.
Yeah.
I'm fat, no heart attack. That's Cody's a shame.
Like, here's a list of all the things Sean did that ultimately proved nothing, to do nothing for him. And they just go down the list. And that's the agenda.
I'm so happy we just planned episode 700.
It's great.
It's going to be a lot more than 700.
I don't know. We'll see.
I hope. Jesus.
We'll see.
44 weeks in a year.
700 is going to be this year. Who's dying this year?
Sean is. We just planned Sean's death.
Oh. It's not as fun if you plan my death, unless you make it look like a heart attack.
No, I need God to do it for me. I can't intervene. Otherwise, it doesn't mean anything.
Cody, you better become a religious man in the next 44 weeks.
See,
by the way,
it's a heart attack though, that's especially grueling. You know, because it's like, damn, if it's like a plane crash, you could still be like, what was it all for? You worked out all that and you went down like anybody else, and that has merit. But like a heart attack,
no, I'd be like, well,
that's like the opposite.
I'd be like, Sean's a bitch. He couldn't survive a plane crash. What the fuck's wrong with him?
I don't know about that. Those are pretty crazy.
By the way, that's one more episode that's already planned for the year. 700 is probably in November sometime.
Yeah.
I haven't counted them out yet, but
yeah, that's nuts.
Isn't that wild? All right, that's the end of this episode and the end of our retrospective on 2024. We'll do it all again next year, so stick around for that. Thank you, everybody who tuned in live for the show. In between episodes, you can find us at our website, grayareas.live or youtube.com/@grayareaslive. We'll be back next week with Sean's episode of Palooza.
Takeover episode 2025.